All right. So, hello everybody. This is Paul Plana. We are now live. It's been a while since I've seen you folks, so it's exciting to be here. So, I've been wanting to do something new. One of the big things that I see all the time from customers just like yourself or watching from me and our students and that sort of thing is, Paul, can you coach me and can you consult me and that sort of thing and help out, right? In terms of understanding different dynamics of a business because everybody's in a different level. And if I can help you, and if I can guide, like we have Nina here as well as a special guest, I'll talk a little bit about herself, her in just a bit. And the idea is that Paul, you can do it because you have so many years of experience. You can do it, Paul, because right now I think our businesses have done well over close to 100 million, I think, in sales over the last decade I've been doing this. So I have some experience that I can impart, but therefore my starting level would be much different from somebody getting started. Maybe I'm not doing some nitty gritty details somebody else is doing. So having someone like our Nina here, our special first guest for this new show that we're doing, it's super exciting to have her here. So that will be exciting because now you can learn from her some of the questions she'll be asking me. I will do just as well as if I were to answer some questions you might be having, and it'll be a great insight, great learning experience for everybody involved. So that's the exciting part. And of course, I can impart some value to Nina's business, and therefore it'll be of great inspiration for everybody. So that's the main goal of it. So now I'll be asking Nina a little bit about herself here. Now, of course, I do know quite a bit, but I'll start from the beginning and then we'll see where she has some issues, whether it's her clients or her own business that I can help assist. If not, we'll have Yash jump in as well and talk about some things that would benefit. So that way we'll go nitty gritty. And because this is a live stream format, you folks can as well post any questions that you have and then we can go through that as well. So it's going to be very interactive. So Nina, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get started? Where are you right now? How many years you've been in doing this stuff? What do you exactly do? That sort of thing.
So way back, probably before most of you were born, I launched my own business. It was about 1984, and I grew it for a couple of years, and then I realized that it had reached the limitation of its growth. So I sold that and moved on. And then throughout my career, and I'm from a health and wellness background, the spa industry, throughout my career then I managed my own business, or I managed other people's businesses, or I became responsible for a whole region of the world, and by the time I was 25, I was managing revenues of about $7 million a week. And that was through managing a whole range of people on cruise ships, and we were there to deliver health, wellness, beauty, and hairdressing services. So what we had is essentially every business owner has the same. How do we get clients? How do we generate interest, which is leads now online? How do we then convert them into clients? And then how do we apply some kind of filtering so that we almost get rid, that the kind of clients we don't want walk themselves out the door, and the clients we do want, we bring them in closer. Because obviously, to be fully booked with a $180 an hour service is quite different from being fully booked with a $30 an hour service, right? So you want the best clients. And because on cruise ships, you've only got 5.5 days to get your whole self marketed, promoted, converted, turned around, booked, and then rebooked, and then to upsell. And the upsell is home care, right? You had 5 days to do that, and every cruise was different. You didn't get any advance notice as to who was coming on, and you didn't have any tools and resources. So from working that gig for 10 years, I learned quite a lot about marketing, and particularly, from those, from a kind of a position of not having any resources, not having any budget. So you get to be smart about where you put your time and resources. And then from there, I got into high-level business. I got into capital financing. So I worked in the Middle East for 10 years. I had my own agency, and it was high-level strategic consulting. But then we got into capital financing of projects. The biggest project I financed was the Dubai Pearl at $750 million. Then I spent 10 years in Silicon Valley in the mid 90s to early 2000s as a tech founder, and IPO'd several times and was doing really well. And then the tech rat happened, and I went from being a multimillionaire to being like completely stony broke, right? Nowhere to go. So I came back to Europe and really, there was no tech there. I had to get back into the health and wellness industry. I launched a couple of brands that have since gone on to become worldwide leaders, like Glossybox, which is a monthly box that's posted to a customer for like $15, and it has a range of samples and discovery products in there. I helped co-found that, and we grew it to, within 5 months in the UK, 97,000 paying subscribers every month, organically. So then I was a CEO. I moved into CEO roles. I did 2 CEO roles, and then I decided to set up my own business. Now, it's largely been a consulting practice, okay? I do have some other services. I do a bit of social media. I do a bit of video and all of these things. But it's quite separated, right? So what I'm struggling with now is that everybody wants me to do copywriting or masterminding or planning for them, or, tweaking their business model. But I'm not able to extract my full market value like that, as probably Paul, because you can't do that, right? You have to, I know your model is to have this mastermind training as the core, and then you do a lot of JVs, and that's the way that you scale and grow. But it's just me, essentially. I got a few freelancers I've been working with for a while. So my issue has always been scaling. Now, recently, and unless literally you've been living in the desert, you would have missed this. Everywhere you go, Greta Van Riel, who is a founder of a few e-com brands, right? Just kind of not really strategy driven, but more trend driven. And she just, got the product made and in time to the market to capture a wave and then, exit that opportunity. So Greta Van Riel has been JVing with Nathan Chan, who's the founder of Founder magazine. And they've been promoting her founder story called Start and Scale, right? Start and Scale. It's $3,000. And it's basically a course, an online course. There's not even any one-to-one. It's just like a group pre-recorded, on-demand training. And she takes them through like some 5 basic steps about how to find the next trending wave, how to get on it, how to get something made locally and then scale globally, tips for building on Shopify, and then how to systemize your operations, right? So I can do better, much better. So Paul, my question is, what I want to do is, and I've built it all out mapped it all out on paper. I want to retarget all of the Start and Scale traffic, right? Because not a lot of people are going to pay $3,000, or actually it's more or less 4 if they do the 3 pay. So I want to retarget all of Greta Van Riel's and Nathan Chan's traffic. And I want to do my own Start and Scale. And along the process of Start and Scale, I want to sell in all of the products that I have, most of which are from you, like the wholesale robot and, all the Sonic Vid and the AI or chat bot and stuff. So that's my question is, how do I start?
Excellent. So what we need to do, Nina,
sorry,
right?
It's quite long, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. And now we kind of know. So what we need to do, right? And I know exactly kind of where you are, because I've been there about 2.5 years ago. So I'll explain to you a little bit, okay? So
Perfect.
It's been a struggle that I feel exactly what you're saying, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So first, let's map out. So let me actually share my screen. Yash, if you can put my screen on there, please, because I don't have the permission. Excellent. So, Nina, what happens, right? Where you are, you got to understand where you are in the framework of business, right? This is something that took me a long time, right? So let's map out where you are. That's the first step that we need to do. So what happens, right? Let's say this is a life, right? Like, let's say we put our life as something here, right? And in a business is also like a baby. So let's say in the business world, right? This is why I want to draw it out so people can also understand and they get value out of it. Right. So generally what happens, right? In the beginning, we don't know anything, right? So we don't know anything about any core competency. We don't know what the heck we're doing. So almost, I think the first, I'd say 1 to 3 years, again, depending on your upbringing, like let's say you were born into, like, say for example, me, I guess you're saying with you probably, is we were brought up with this upbringing of not entrepreneurial skills, right? We were brought up like, you got to save money, you got to go to school, you got to get an education, blah blah blah. So for that kind of a person who did not have an entrepreneurial dad or mom or something, it will be longer than if it is for somebody else, right? So now this is the beginning. So 1 to 3 years to understand where we want to go, what do we want to do, what's our skill set, right? And then once we reach here, then we go to the next level. I'd say anything above 5 years. So let's say 5+ years. This is where we start to get expertise in something, right? So this is where we're like, oh, I'm an expert now, and that sort of thing. Now, someone like you, who's sort of like me, who's already having 10+ years of experience in marketing and other factors that you bring in to your skill set, right? So you're somewhere down here, I would say, right? So let's say 10+ years, right? And you're, I would say, above an expert. So we generally like to call them a pro, so whatever, professionals, right? And this right here, this is the top 1%. So this period. So what happens is, one big thing that I'm a big believer in, it's very easy, right? From this stage to this stage, it's very easy to get to. But from here, incremental improvement is very difficult, right? So for example, if I'm going to tell you, Nina, go, you're a professional now, you got to be the top 1% of the 1%. It's much more difficult for your skill set to improve beyond this level to get to the next level here to be in the top 1%. So I was just, as you are saying, you know how you were like, okay, I want to, set up certain things, right? Like you were like copywriting, right? I have a lot of clients asking me for copywriting because I have marketing skills. And I don't want to kind of do the whole work myself because I'm much more valued than sitting there and doing stuff, right? And I have some other things happening and that sort of thing. So when I was this exact same thing that you're going through, when I went to 2.5 years ago, I was going through the same thing, which was, hey, I have the skill set. I have so many opportunities coming to me because I have this experience, but I got to be picky in what opportunity I pick, what ideas I pick. And more importantly, should I even do this job? Because it makes me good money, right? People are offering me money. Should I say no? So if I would like to recommend you something, you got to know where you are. That's why I drew this. So in this stage here, you would take everything you get, right? Like you get every opportunity, you take it, and you'll do it, and that sort of thing. In this stage here, you can be picky. Like you would say, I am an expert, so therefore I charge you more money, right? So you'll charge more money at this level. You'd say, instead of charging, say, for a copy, a normal person charges, say, $1,000, $2,000, you would charge $5,000 or whatever, right? In this stage here, it's no longer about charging more money because for everything, there's a price. I mean, if somebody in the marketplace is charging $10,000, you cannot just go and say, oh, I'm worth 100,000, pay me 100K. Nobody's going to pay you 100,000 because without seeing results and how much they can get. So what I realized, and this is where I was struggling,
exactly where
trying to figure optimization, right?
Yeah.
Here's the big thing, okay? You got to understand this. And this changed my game completely when I realized it. When you're here in this level, 75% good is great in this level, okay? What I mean by that is if you were to put just 2 hours of work here at this level, it's equivalent to some guy putting 50 hours of work here to get the same level of output, okay? So the idea is when you're going to a client and they say, look, can you do copywriting? Instead of rejecting the deal, what you could do, you send it to this copywriter here, right? Send it to this guy, get like a bare minimum stuff done, pay this guy $500 or $1,000 or whatever, right? Whatever it might be. You'd say, I'll put 1K, right? And then you do the refinement process, which is this 2 hours of work here. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
This is where you're going to get efficiencies when you get to this level. You should not be wasting your time doing this $500 work. You should not be wasting your time doing this 50 hours worth of work. Or you should be wasting your time or spending is this refinement 2 hours of work. What I'm noticing is these days, my 2 hours here that I spend is valued at a lot more for any business because I am much better off spending this 2 hours to refine work of this guy right here than to sit and write from scratch, right? And once you get to a next level, our problem is starting something, not finishing, right? You understand what I'm saying? It's not that difficult to finish something. If somebody gives you a copy, it's much easier. Somebody does a video to give the editing process for like, hey, optimize it this way, optimize it that way. is much better utilization of your time. So when I'm going to suggest you is you're in that level right now where assume any task, right? It could be marketing, social media, can be anything. Assume that your work 70% as good is good enough. You don't have to be a perfectionist anymore. Okay. Very important you understand, because I used to be in the process where I used to be like, okay, they're making me do everything. I got to do, in our company, for example, right? I look at the payroll, and I got to look at, for example, the accounting stuff. And then there's, for example, dealing with new hires, firing some people who are not doing a good job. Then there's operational stuff, right? Like we have 2 offices, for example, and looking at the operation stuff there. All the stuff can take a ton of your resources and time as it is, right? So now if I'm going to spend this hustle part of the equation here, I'm going to be losing out on this potential here. And it's a question of utilization of your skill set, right? So that's the first part. So I would never, okay, no matter what people will tell you, I know whereas entrepreneurs, one of the big things we have is you're jumping on new opportunities, right? Like, oh, I'm kind of bored with this, I'm going to move to that. I would never let go of a cash cow that is making you money, okay? If it is clients, if it is copywriting work or any agency work you're doing, I would never let go of that money. Where I would let go of is the time put into that, okay? So you would look at the efficiencies here in this 2-hour thing rather than actually looking at doing the actual work yourself, okay? So it's very important that you understand, because I'm noticing these days when I didn't know this before, right? So I'll give you a perfect example. When Yash, right? When I was mentoring Yash in the early days, right? About a year and a half ago or something, Yash would come in and he'd be like, Paul, I want to do advertising on Facebook. I want to do this. I want to learn this and that sort of thing. And, in the beginning, I thought, okay, Yash is doing this stuff, so I'll hand it over to him and he can learn the stuff. And then it was doing fine. But what I realized is that because of my experience, which is almost 14 years now, the little efficiency that I would suggest, Yash, would increase our revenues by 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, right? And then we have a business partner said, he would give some efficiency, some stuff that would improve things by 4 times. That doesn't mean that Yash did anything wrong. It doesn't mean that Yash is not doing a good job, but it's just a question of experience here, right? So Yash is probably here while I'm here. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just a question that you got to understand that, okay? Where you are. So when you are in this level that you're in, which very few people are, okay? It's not something that a lot of people give up. A lot of people don't go to this experience level. You got to understand you don't have to be a perfectionist anymore. And at the same time, you don't have to do new things anymore. So what I would do, I would structure your day such that your agency business should be taking no more than 20% of your time, right? And then 80%, you're talking about the courses and structuring the retargeting and some other ideas that you have. What you need to spend time on is there setting up that setup, because we know it. Ultimately, that's what's going to get you the passive income, long-term income when you're doing advertising and that sort of thing. And it's not reliant upon you, and it's infinitely scalable. Like if you have a product or course of your own, even when you're asleep, it doesn't matter. It's making you sales and that sort of thing. But for this, what would happen is you need really good operations, okay? No matter what people tell you, it's like this. When you are in this stage here, right? Like in this stage here, or even in this expert stage or whatever, you're doing some work, you hand it over to somebody, you're doing the refinement process. When you're trying to build your own product or service, it's no longer about some agency or something. You got to have control over the employees who are going to be working for you, okay? Absolutely important, okay? And I cannot stress this, because you'll see a lot of people say, oh, I'm an agency, I'm going to help you with graphic design, I'm this, I'm that. If that person is not full-time or at least dedicated enough to put their 100% effort for you in that particular task at that particular time, meaning let's say it's graphic design work or video creation work, that 1 week that person is spending, I want 100% of their focus on that. I don't want them jumping around 3 or 4 projects. I want them to be fully dedicated. Those are the kind of people I'm looking for, okay? So it's very important you get those kind of people when you're in this stage, okay? You're not looking at just purely agencies or somebody you can offload the work to. You're looking at somebody you can dedicate 100% of their focus, because otherwise what happens at this stage is it's no longer about, oh, I'm going to, work with a client and that client is dealing with everything. Here, anything could happen. You could have, for example, some issue where you're working on this thing and some opt-in form is not working because autoresponder that you had to collect the leads, it has reached its limit, or there's a captcha code happening. In that kind of a scenario, if somebody's not dedicated to you, it's gonna take 2 days to fix rather than 2 minutes. You understand what I'm saying? And that 2 days could cost you $10,000-$20,000
Yeah.
rather than saving you, right? So this is what you need to look at. Okay, so my goal is you should pat yourself on the back first thing for a minute that you're in this level, and please understand that you're in this stage, that your 70%, 65, 70, 80% is good enough for, and it's going to get great results. You don't have to spend 50 hours. You don't have to spend 100 hours per client. You're good enough. But if you're doing in here, you probably have to spend majority of the time here, because now you're setting up a business you have control over. You want to set up for the long haul, right? So everything should be long term based. So for example, one of the things is, in our business, for example, I could be making at least $3 million more per year doing certain things, but I don't do it simply because I don't want to, say, put my merchant account at risk, right? I don't want to put my PayPal account at risk. I don't want to, say, for example, let's say hire somebody who's only going to be there for 2 or 3 months, but not the long term, right? So you got to have your system very, very conservatively run when you're trying to build your own business, your own product and all that stuff. You got to be very, very careful about not the growth, but actually the downside protection. Okay, this is something a mentor that I spoke to recently. It's very, very successful, does hundreds of millions of dollars every single year, much more than me. What he told me is, look, I don't care about if my company grows 30% a year, 40% a year, 50% a year. I just care if it's going to make a loss or not. My goal is to prevent the loss from happening, right? The downside protection, then the growth. Because what happens is, if you protect yourself from losing money and having your operations correct, and you have your ideas correct, your systemization correct, your planning and preparation correct, then the upside is going to be much more sustainable, right? It's going to be much more, if you will, give you satisfaction and happiness, right? Does that make sense what I'm saying, right? So this is one of the things that always happens in our industry, right? Like everything moves so quickly. Everybody is like, I want to do this new opportunity came in, this new thing came in, and all that stuff. And they're always like, oh, I'm making $10,000 this month or this week or whatever it might be, or this last 3 months. I'm going to now multiply to 50,000. Right. And the problem is they don't have a system to do that. Okay. And this is something I see quite often from everybody. Like, for example, what I mean by a system is, maybe you need to have 1 or 2 extra customer support staff working for you, right? Get them from Philippines or somewhere where they are focused and working for you full time. And having that extra customer support person means that when you go to 50,000 in revenue, you can handle that extra customers that you're getting. Right? Because if some negative feedback comes in, now you lose your merchant account because you're not delivering on your product or your service. Now you're going down from 50,000 to 0, right? So that's what I mean by downside protection. You should never do something where overnight what you're making 50, 60, 70, 80,000 becomes 0. That should be your 100% focus, and that should be your mindset going in, okay? This is a mistake I did over the years, right? In the internet world, I mean, when there were opportunities coming in, I'm like, oh, there's $1 million opportunity here. There's this, there's that. Why not? Let's just do that. Let's just do this. And when you get to a certain level and you're building your own business, the problem becomes you're responsible right at the end of the day. So try to ensure that your merchant accounts will never go down. Try to have backups ready. Try to make sure your website and your servers and all that stuff will handle the traffic, right? Try to get a autoresponder account or whatever that can handle the volume of leads that you're getting, right? Try to make sure, for example, if you're really looking at hiring some people, these are the people who'll stick around with you long term. I'll give you a perfect example. The best kind of people you want to hire are people who, either getting started, like very brand new, and you're motivating them and you're mentoring them to get to you, so they'll have loyalty, they'll stick around long term. Or you get a kind of person who's already a mom or a dad, they have a couple of kids and now they're settling down, they see this as the future. You don't want to get the middle ground people who are like, oh, I got this opportunity and I'm going to move on to this next one and next one, right? Because then the time spent training that person, the time spent motivating, and that is going to get wasted. Okay. So you want to be very careful in this process of hiring people and all that stuff. And the big point about hiring as well is, I will pay more money for a person who's a hustler, like who will spend more hours and be focused on that. Even if they're only 8 hours or 6 hours they dedicate for me every day, they should be available, right? When I communicate with them, they're responding back to me. They are, on top of their game. They're looking to improve every day. Then a person who thinks they know everything, right? Than a person who does it in a certain way, simply because if a person has availability, it's much easier to train that person than to erase bad habits somebody already knows, right? So these are the two things. So is that clear? So did you need any
Yeah,
clarification on this part that I just explained?
you did. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So now let's talk about a little bit here about your agency work here, right? So I kind of want to clarify this part. So this 20%, let's say we're doing this work, are you capable of doing this right now, or do you think you need to have somebody hired to help you with that, right? Because you don't never want to let go of some revenue stream that you're getting, because it's actually silly, right? Because it's all
Yeah.
question core competency as well. I mean, you built a skill set that people are valuing. Why would you want to leave that?
So there's a question right now about the I have outgrown the clients that I have, right?
Mhm.
And I've been thinking about forcing a new contract on them, which will most likely have them, mean that they won't use me anymore because of budget or whatever other restrictions. So actually, this is something I can use. But what I found is it is really, really time consuming finding the right people and training them up. And a lot of people in the gig economy overstate their expertise and their experience and their skills. And then, you ask them to do a task for you and you just think, what? No. So I
Yeah.
found a good video creation guy now. I've been working with a good graphic designer who can handle more business for some time. They're at the upper end of they're like $20 an hour, which is a little bit high really, but okay, let's move forward with that. But yeah, I need some more people, particularly an area that I spend a lot of time on is on my websites and all those sorts of things. So, I could do with a couple of competent web devs for sure.
Right. So
Yeah.
now this is a good question that you brought across, right? Hiring, like who do I get for the kind of work that I'm doing and that sort of thing. So this is again a question of what business, right? You see my
Mm.
point? So if this is your agency business, right? We're just
Mhm.
talking about this right now, right? So ideally, what I would recommend, and this is something this is a very, very big question a lot of people ask, right? And one of the things that comes across is like, oh, is there like a white labeled agency which does the work and I don't have to do any of the work, and they bill they bill me, my client will never know, and then I will bill them back. But the problem is that cost, the markups will not make any sense for you. I mean, you probably noticed it. So then you got to look at the right kind of person who would match this wavelength here. Okay. So
Mhm.
I actually did a training on this just recently. The idea is basically what we need to do is we need to find somebody who aligns with your mindset here. Okay. So
Mhm.
what that means is if you're looking at Upwork.com or Freelancer, I don't know if I can find that example really quickly today, but maybe we'll do that. I'll probably pass it on to you after this call. And if people are interested, I'll probably do that another training on this. But the idea is that uh, generally speaking, there are two types of people, right? One is a freelancer, which is just generally the person's a graphic designer or whatever. They're looking to generate revenue and that sort of thing. And the other set is a person just like you who probably has 5 years experience or somewhere around that. They've done agency work. Now they want to graduate into building their own business, managing other folks, right? It's like similar to say a contractor, general contractor when you're building a house, and then you have subcontractors, right? A general contractor was a subcontractor at a certain time. Now they're like, look, I know the experience. Now I can handle subcontractors to build a house, and then I'll charge a markup on that sort of thing, right? So what you see in Upwork and all these places is there when you're searching, you'll find two options. You're gonna have freelancer, right? And
Mhm.
then another setup that you'll see is an agency. I don't know if
Mhm.
you've ever searched it, but it's not just any agency. What I'm looking for when I'm hiring is an agency with the actual owner of that agency also doing the billable hours, and they have maybe 2 or 3 employees. So it's very easy to find that because what you'll see is let's say the owner's name is Matt, right? Let's say I'm just making it up, but let's say Matt. Now, Matt, it could be anywhere in the world, by the way. Matt could be in, I don't know, Eastern Europe, Asia, Africa. It doesn't really matter where Matt is from. Now, Matt would be basically somebody who has 3 or 4 years of freelancer experience and that sort of thing. Let's say graphic design or whatever. Now Matt has decided, look, I'm going to charge, say, $50 an hour. I'm just saying, for consulting with you on what work is required and all that stuff. And then I'm going to pass this on to some employees that I have, 2 or 3 employees or anybody else. And then I will bill the employees, let's say at $15 an hour or whatever, or $10 an hour or whatever, the employees amount. Now, why is this powerful? So these are the kind of guys I'm looking to work with, simply because one thing, they're not a big agency with like 100 employees or whatever. So their focus is not just like, oh, I'm going to just hand you over to some, I don't know, human resources person or some business development person, and then you're not meeting anybody of actual power. Secondly, Matt is hungry right now because he set up a business, or she set up a business, in the case, let's say it's Melissa or whoever, and they're desperate to grow because they know, look, I made a risk, I took a risk, and I went into building a company right now. And therefore now I have payroll, I have no salary that is consistently coming in. I'm desperate to get sales. So now you see how you have existing clients. If price is the issue, right? In most cases, it might be the case for renewing, especially in our agency work and all that stuff that we are doing. The client might only need you until the web designing is done. They might only need you until social media campaigns were set up. Then after that, if they don't see much of an ROI out of it, they're like, no, I don't feel like spending a monthly fee on that. But they might say, look, however, we really want you to, for example, run ads for us continually, or we really want you to do graphic design for our social media campaign, not the social media management, but the graphic design only element, right? If for you to go find people who do only those 1 or 2 things is a big headache. But you find these kind of folks, right? And I'll show you maybe how we can do it. But it's super easy. You just go in, and in Upwork.com, you search. You can see freelancers agency. Click on agencies, and you'll see in that person's profile, they'll be like, "Hey, I am Matt, and my company is XYZ or XYZ agency, and these are the things that we are good at. We're good at web design, graphic design, blah blah blah." Right? And
that's much better, actually, because then you also get some resource management and project management, because that agency owner will effectively manage those other resources for you.
Right. And when you're talking to these people, your simple job should be, look, I have a whole bunch of clients and I don't have the time to manage them. Your job is, I'll pay you $50 an hour, right? To coordinate what that client needs. So you put a group, let's say there's a group that you're creating in Slack, Skype, or whatever the communication, or if it's an email chain, put the CC in, and then you can say like, okay, Matt, I'm going to pass it on to you, what I just talked to the client. And then Matt will bill you $50 or whatever for that 2 or 3 hours spent to send that over to Bob, or I don't know, Jose, or whoever is in that team that he has. And then that means that if an emergency comes across, when you're building this business here, that's going to be your long-term goal. You're not managing the fire, so to speak, right? So it's very useful. Like, for example, in our development, I'll give you an idea where I got this idea from. So in the beginning, I used to do majority of the development of our software and that sort of thing, where I'd get a developer, I'd just manage it, and I'll kind of like basically micromanage everything for that project and that sort of thing. And then one problem I had with that is the question of incentives, right? If I move on to my major business here and I'm spending, say, 7 hours every day in that business, and only have 1 hour every day to, after a certain time, right, to focus on that developer, that person or that agency, that freelancer, that person will realize this person is not dedicating their full time with me. So they're going to fire me at any time. That's their fear, right? Like, this person used to talk to me so much in the beginning. Now this person is so busy that I don't get to chat with them as much, or her that much. So therefore, I'm going to quit. And they're going to smoothly look at other opportunities and that sort of thing, and you'll lose that person. On the other hand, what I realized is, if you want quality work, you got to look at them as a partner almost. Okay. So you look at yourself like, if I'm making, say, $10,000 a month, right, in that particular business, I'm going to look at Matt here as 10% shareholder of that company. So I should not be worried to pay $1,000 per month to Matt, right, with that $50 an hour that he's spending. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So then what happens here? Matt is motivated because he feels, for example, that this person is giving me all these clients, so I can do payroll, I can manage. And at the end of the day, even if it's break even for Matt, he'll be more happier to work with you because at the end of the day, at least you're paying the bills, right? That's the
Mhm.
biggest fear for a business owner. Like, can I hire these great people, I have a team, now can I keep them with new projects? Because their fear is, I'm going to fire this person, I'm going to train a new person. So when they consistently make money off of you, it's a huge incentive for them to do extra work for you and that sort of
Mhm.
thing. You see the incentive change here that I'm talking about, where
Yeah.
if I got the same freelancer, right, and I paid this $1,000 for that freelancer, what is that freelancer's fear? They're like, oh, once this project is done, I'm done, right? Like, I'll not get any money. That's
Yeah.
the fear they have. Matt's fear is, I gotta pay payroll. Like, I gotta have 3 people or 5 people or whatever that are working for me.
Mhm.
I have to make sure that I pay them and keep them. And so if Nina here is giving me that job, I better take care of her because
Mhm.
I'm just growing right now. You see the difference?
Yeah.
So look at it that way. Okay. A lot of people don't look at it like a partnership kind of thing when they're dealing
Mhm.
with this. And they're always like huffing and puffing over the hourly wage here. But it's a question of like, how much are you paying every month to what you're making? If it's around 10%, 15%, it's an awesome deal that you can cultivate and grow. Is that clear?
Mhm. Okay.
Right. Yeah. And you can find these people easy, but don't go for these agencies with like 50, 100 people. It's a waste of time. Go for
Mhm.
somebody who will do exactly what I said. They'll pay you
Yeah.
that 50, $60 an hour, and then they'll offload it to somebody else who'll do 15 bucks, 20 bucks an hour, or 10
Mhm.
bucks an hour, or whatever it might be.
Mhm.
And then this agency stuff you can handle over to them. Now, your business stuff is a completely different story, because now business stuff, you could still do it in this setup here, but you got to have relationship with that person, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that person is not going to just leave everything and come to you saying, oh, just pay me 10% or 15% or 20% of your revenues, and I'm going to bring 3, 5, 10 employees of mine, because there's no guarantee how much you're going to make, right? You see my
Mhm.
point? So if you had a relationship with Matt for say 3 years or 2 years or something, right? At least more than one, at least I'd say, right? Let's say you have 3 years of experience with Matt and his company. Now he knows, okay, at the minimum, Nina was paying me 3,000, 4,000 bucks a month. Now she's proposing me this other opportunity where I can get a partnership stake. Maybe there's more money. I see there's risk, but at the very least, I'm still making money from Nina in that agency side of thing, or from that other projects I made money. So
Mhm.
I can lose that little bit of money, even if I don't make any money for a month or two from this deal. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I say, instead of going this angle, just get employees to work with you. Um, the only difference is how continual the work will be, right?
Mhm.
Like, if it's just a sales page creation thing, it's a one-time thing, maybe you got to change a few here and there, you can hire an agency for that, right? I mean, not a big deal. But if it's more like running ads, or maybe it's continual social media management, now you're talking about, you want to go approach influencers, maybe you need to go on podcasts with those folks to get
Yeah.
their audience. And what value are you providing them in that sense? So you have to build your own audience, right? For all that stuff. Like, if you want to build your own audience and all that stuff, having somebody full time will, again, as I said, it's a question of 3 days to fix a merchant account issue or a website issue. Is going to cost you more money than that little bucks you're saving from
Mhm.
getting the right person. Of course, it's
Yeah.
easier said than done. I understand when I'm saying it, it sounds easier said than done. But generally, the principle is that you get a better quality person for these mission critical things.
Mhm.
And if you have somebody full time, that's even better.
Yeah.
And even if that person needs some training for 6 months or whatever, you can be patient about it. It's just because that person will save you that extra 3-4 days that could be going down.
Mhm. Okay.
Right. Yeah. And did you have any other question in regards to this business side of things? Because I know you were like saying you wanted to do retargeting, you want to build an audience. Like, did you have any questions on that?
So I mean, there are a lot of moving pieces there that you don't need to have lined up to start with. You just need to
Mm-hmm.
have a rough plan for them. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the way I planned to start was just to, instead of even pre-recording anything,
Mm-hmm.
just have each of the sessions as a live training right there. So all I'm doing is marketing the front end, the concept, and then a little bit of a sort of a sample to get people on board. And then have a number of upsells, but really the money's going to come from the long-term relationship, because then I'll get to sell them in all of the tools and resources that I use.
Okay, so
So
let me explain this here. Okay,
right.
so it's a good question. So now the question is, and we can do this, and I'm sure this will help a lot of people as well understand this a little bit better. So now you're talking about audience building, right? Like, you want to build an
Right.
audience, you want to build a customer
Yeah.
base, and so
Business
on.
building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Brand building.
ultimately, right? Looking at that, so business building, there's a lot of components. We can go days and days, but we're talking about customer lists, customer base, and prospects, and all that stuff. So what I want you to understand with audiences is this, okay? Audiences give you power, okay?
Hmm.
That is not quantifiable just based on the return on investment. What I mean by that
Right.
is when it comes to power, what we mean by power is basically think of it this way, right? So let's say I built a list of 10,000 subscribers, right?
Hmm.
And let's say I got it at a break even or a slight loss. Let's say I did it through ads or I did it with social media or whatever, right? So generally speaking, what you do is you trade off, like I'll give you a perfect example and I'll explain it in detail. What you do is you trade silver to gold, basically. What that means is if I'm generating an audience, 10,000 subscribers through ads, this is what we like to call cold audience, right?
Yeah.
Cold audience basically means these people don't know Nina. They don't trust Nina. They're just getting in. They're interested. They have a problem. Let's say their problem is to grow their brand or grow their company or whatever your course is trying to solve, right? These people don't know you that well. So now you have to build that trust and all that stuff, right? Now, look, these people, that doesn't mean that they're not going to buy everything, but maybe I would say from 10,000, maybe 1,000 people are your hot customers, right? Meaning they're
Hmm.
engaged with you, they're going to buy what you have to offer and that sort of thing, right? Now the problem is majority of the time, and you'll see this often, people kind of feel like, okay, these 10,000 people, I mean, they're useless. The 9,000 people who are not buying, so if we go here, these 9,000 people are useless, right? Like the autoresponder is going to say they didn't open any of your emails, therefore we're going to remove them, only put the 1,000 active. People are like, oh, the 9,000 did not buy from me, therefore blah blah blah. What you got to do is use these 9,000 to your power, okay, to your benefit. So what you do is you build these 9,000 people, you get them on your social media, your podcast, or whatever you want to get them into, just outside of your email list, get them on text messaging, whatever it needs to be done, right? And then what you do now is you go in and you get the top folks in your market, right? You mentioned some folks in your market and you say, look, I have 10,000 audience, right? I would love to do a live stream like what we are doing today, right? Or a podcast or something like that to
Hmm.
share my message. I'll do it with you and then you can do it with me, right? You do it with your audience first because those guys, all of these folks, right? Even somebody as big as Tony Robbins, right? They're all in promotion mode, like what we like to call, right?
Yeah.
Sometime in a year, in a certain month, they're in promotion mode. That means basically they have a book to sell, or I don't know, they have a course or something else. At that point in time, they don't care if you have 9,000 audience, 50,000, 100,000, a million. They don't care because their job is to get as many sales to their books or whatever it is
Hmm.
that they want to do at that point in time. Now, the benefit is this is very critical. A lot of people don't understand. So these 9,000 people, they might not buy anything from you, but they might buy something here in the long run, or they might still be engaging with this, right? So from this 10,000 people, let's say I got, I don't know, let's say 3,000 people to watch this particular podcast or listen to that podcast or that particular live stream or whatever it might be, something that you do together, right? The joint
Hmm.
venture thing that you do together. Now, what happens is you will be doing that as a reciprocal with that person. So now they'll do a podcast with their audience as a favor back. It's just the way the business works. So now what happens is they too might be something similar. I mean, you can work in the same level, but now what happens is, check this out. This is very interesting. A lot of people don't understand the benefit of this. So now they too might have 10,000 people. From that, they too have a list of these 1,000 people who are very hot, engaged people that they have, right?
Hmm.
Now, when somebody trusts Nina, somebody trusts Paul. When Paul is referring customers to Nina, these people are more likely to buy from Nina. Does that make sense? Because it's
Yeah.
it's like a
Yeah.
doctor, right? Like somebody goes to a doctor, they're like, my leg is broken. The doctor's like, okay, I'm gonna write these notes, like what you need to get, like a prescription. They go to the store, let's say they go to the drugstore or whatever, the pharmacy, they will skip the line of everything and directly hand that receipt over to the pharmacist, right?
Hmm.
Right, because they're like, the doctor knows, so therefore they know better. Same thing happens when a referral like this happens. So now what happens is, let's look at this, right? You start off at 10,000 subscribers. Let's say you didn't even make that much money out of it. You got 1,000 hot customers there, and most likely, maybe not 1,000, but you'll get something like 550 to 700
Yeah.
back from these people who are very hot buyers. Okay.
Hmm.
So now you started off at 1,000. Now you're at 1,750 very hot customers
Hmm.
that you got. Now, of course, you're going to send some of your customers over to them. There's nothing you can do about it. But in the long run, the more of an audience you build of these people, right, the more it is that you're going to be making money. Okay.
Right.
So you're going to make more money doing this.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
this is how I want you to understand your audience. One of the biggest problems is you should not look at them as profit and loss alone. That's a very simplistic way of doing it. Try to just break even if needed to build your audience. Okay. Do your best to break even.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have to put any upsells, downsells, it doesn't matter. Use this audience to get more audience from other people. Okay. This will allow you, in about maybe a year, you've done 10, 20, 30 of such live streams, podcasts, or whatever it is that you do. Most of these people will even do it for free without even asking you to do anything because they're looking for content, right?
Yeah.
Continually, like YouTube influencers, this podcasts and all that stuff. Over time, you're going to make this into 17,500 people, let's say, right? This is $1 million business right here. Nothing much to discuss. It could be worth 2 million, 3 million, $4 million right out the gate. So if you can understand business in this sense, audience building in this sense, it will help you a lot. Okay. And you're talking about the background work, right? You're talking about the background work, like what do I do first? Like how do I set up? What are some things I want to do? You see, if you can focus just on this, everything else will work itself out, right?
I guess the best way to start really is just focus on the front end, on the external, right? All the marketing, promotion stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the theory
is the back end as you go.
Yeah. The theory is the more valuable the front end is, even if you gave the farm on the front end, right?
Right.
There'll be a small percentage of people who will buy the back end, no matter the price. It's just the numbers game, right? So the idea is to get as many people into the front end. That's why you'll see pizza stores giving like $1, like $5 pizza, or McDonald's doing like $1 burger or whatever. It's because they know once they get people into the door, there's a percentage of people who'll buy drinks or whatever. Right. So you look at that. But what we are looking at long term is audience building of those hot customers. Okay. Because I'm telling you right now, I know a lot of people. I've dealt with a lot of successful people and all that stuff. They could say, oh, look, I have 1 million customer list, right? Oh, we have 1 million subscribers, right? Sounds like a great number, but I can guarantee you maybe about 30,000 from this 1 million is actually active people who open up their email. So they'll check their data and all that stuff, right? Like they'll check their podcasts and all that stuff. And this is the misnomer people have, which is I'm going to build a 1 million. No, I want to get as many of these people, these 30,000 hot people as possible. So how much value can I provide to these 30,000 people? And with these remaining, let's say 970,000, can I leverage that audience to do something joint venture, promote them something, or do something free like what we're doing to leverage that relationship, so that what happens thereafter is that hot audience I'm just showing you right now, that 17,500 will set you up for at least 3 years. Okay.
I'm looking at the way that you handle this, keeping your customer base, your audience very close to you, and through the masterminds like that we're doing right now, and the Skype groups and things like that. And it's really smart because I do read your emails, but not like I'm not waiting for them to drop in to my inbox so I can take action, right? Because it's a low priority email. But just having this daily contact with people like Yash and the other people in the group, and having the engagement with you, and looking at the range of topics that could be of interest, actually that's a really smart move. And the fact that it is free to people, customers, your audience, I imagine that you get quite a good conversion rate from your audience, because we're all very engaged. Absolutely. Versus other people that just use list marketing.
100%. 100%. It's like this, right? Like this is what the last thing we'll talk about today, because I don't want people to like feel like it's too much to handle. But you see what happens once you build a business, right? The first, say, $100,000, right, is based upon pure hard work on your part, right?
Yeah.
You're putting in the effort, you did everything. The next 1 million, let's say, it's going to be based on your team's hard work, right? Like your team did it. They helped out. Like, so somebody did a good graphics design, somebody improved your opt-in sequence or whatever. That's basically the team did it. Beyond this, right? Beyond the 1 million, it's incremental. Everything, like 1% here, right? 1% there. This one thing I did there, like for example, I'll do this live stream I'm doing with you. That's a 1% thing where somebody will watch, they'll benefit from it. They'll see Nina as an inspiration, and they'll start their business. They'll remember Paul did that valuable thing for me, right? That's a small thing. And then maybe something else I do, like some like for example, we are doing like Yash does those weekly webinars. That's an incremental thing. And then we do something else, like for example, when somebody emails me, I reply back, and rather than pushing it to my customer support, incremental thing. Maybe sometimes we're doing these live webinars where even when there are 30, 40 people in a live webinar, sometimes I'll do it live. Okay. I'm one of the few people in this industry. A lot of people don't know this, but the few people in the industry, a lot of people in this industry are like, if there are 100 people on that call, I'll actually jump in and I'll actually do a live webinar or whatever. I'm one of the few people, even if it's 30 people, I'll do a webinar. Why? Because I'm not looking at just the revenue there. I'm looking at that 30 people. If they know me, right, through the experience, they could buy something from me down the line, or I'm doing more what other people are unwilling to do, right?
It's brilliant.
So that's how I want you to look at it. This 1% here, 1% there, they add up a lot, because that's the difference between a 1 million business and a 10 million business. Okay.
You know, that is the teams that train for the Olympics. They have this strategy called the incremental gains, based on objective strategy tactics, and all they look for is incremental gains in their training up to the Olympics. So the top teams, that's their whole training strategy is based on incremental gains. And you're right, actually, I'm at the 6 figures, and it is pure hard graft. It's the hours and the grunt work that you put in that holds it all together. But going from 6 figures to 7 figures, I'm like a pinball. I'm like ping, 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 ping. You know, you just get there and it all falls apart, and then you set up the next one, and you know, and it is. And I can see now some gaps where I can use the expertise and the wisdom you've shared with us today and apply that to my own business. Not saying it's made it any easier, but I have a little bit more light and guidance now. But it is, I mean, you know, you're moving forward in very small steps at this stage.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it's a question of this, right? A lot of people, this last thing I'm going to mention is strategy. Okay. Strategy versus tactics. Okay. Probably I've mentioned this before, but this is very important. You got to know the difference between both. You see, at this level, $100,000, you can do it with pure tactics. Tactics would mean like one thing, like, or do a webinar. That's a tactic, right? Go and do a podcast with somebody who is successful. That's a tactic, right? And go put a video ad instead of an image ad on Facebook or in social. These are all tactics, right? The strategy is what's going to get you to $1 million, not the tactics. Okay. So in our online space, I mean, you already know this because you have all this experience, but in our online space, strategy is always going to be constant. The tactics will keep changing, right? Strategy means audience building. Always you can build a list, email list. Maybe tomorrow email dies, but social media might replace email, right? Perfect example, people don't have landline phones anymore. Everybody uses a cell phone, right? That doesn't mean that phone sales have died. It just means that it's a different structure now with cell phones as opposed to landline phones, right? For example, now we have these live streams, right? When I got started, video was crazy. Like everything was buffering and everything. So I had to change from being a shy, introverted person who would not want my face in front of the camera, right? I was very introverted and still am, to being out of my comfort zone to be in front of the camera, right? Why? It's because the underlying strategy is I have to keep building an audience. I have to keep building a relationship with that audience. The underlying strategy is I got to keep innovating more when you're creating the products, right? Even if it costs more money. Like, for example, we used to build back in 2010. I'll give you an example. Everything was desktop software, right? Everything. Like desktop software, people don't realize it's super easy to build and maintain because everything is your computer power. Everything uses, you know what I mean, right?
It's all client stuff, wasn't it? Client based.
Yeah. So it was like I spent, say, $20,000 to build a desktop software, and somebody buys it. That's it. That's my cost. Now, everything I make after that is profit. I just have to update that software a little bit. Now, in the last, I think, since 2016, I made a conscious decision, 2015-ish, 2016, that we were going to do everything in the cloud, right? And it was a very tough decision because not many developers were doing that kind of stuff. Not many software developers, not many designers, not many people were doing cloud. And it's more expensive as well to do cloud because why? Everything is on my servers, right? Like Amazon alone, we spend, Amazon and Google combined almost $50,000 a month in server costs right now, right? I could save all of that if I just did desktop, and some of our competitors do it and all that. But I know for a fact in the near future, server costs are going to go down, but desktop might be incompatible with Chrome OS, right? Google OS. Google created Google Chrome OS. You cannot install a software in that. Maybe Apple will make some change tomorrow, where in the Mac you cannot have a desktop software. It's going to be cloud based. People want their phone to work with their computer. They want all this stuff, right? So I already had this conscious decision about 4 or 5 years ago, even at a higher cost, that this is where we're going to. That's a strategy I'm very, very particular about. I'm not going to sway from it. Now, did the tactics change? Yeah, because it's a web-based software, we're going to market it differently. We're going to price it differently. We're going to do all that. But the underlying strategy, which is long-term, right? Like, look at the long-term. How are you positioning it? Has always been the same. And this is what I want you to always remember in the back of your mind. It's always about risk mitigation, right? Try to not make a loss, not lose what you built with hard work, like your merchant accounts and all that stuff. So if we have like 3 people, for example, it's actually more than that, but like, I'll just give an example. 3 people focused on billing alone in our company for certain products, and only 2 people doing the customer support, for example. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
technical support.
yeah.
Why
I mean,
so much?
that whole space
Yeah.
also is changing because of full stack non-code development.
Mm-hmm.
You know, using things like Webflow. I mean, again,
Mm-hmm.
it's lowering the barrier to entry. So, you know, the search for innovation continues. You've always got to be ahead of that. It's harder for somebody in your position than for my position, because where you are now, you have to maintain and grow that. But I'm, you know, at the point where I'm getting up to that. And so it's in a way, it's both tough, but it's easier for me than it is for you.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? And you got to be humble about it. It's glad you've said that, right? Like, I'm in a stage right now where I cannot do everything, right? I wish I could. I know for a fact that if I meddle with, for example, our graphic design team a little bit, or our software team sometimes, or I meddle a little bit more, like if I spend another extra 5 hours with certain elements in our business, I could improve it by 5%, right? Let's say. But the question is about balancing, right? That time, could it be spent somewhere else that could drive more revenue, right, for the company? Like, for example, I mean, you've raised capital for the Pearl Islands in Dubai. You probably know, but one of the big things that I've been focusing on over the last couple of years since COVID hit is how to do investments, right, from the revenue that we're making in our company. Because I know in the long run, in the next 10, 15 years, this money that I'm making right now, right, if I just put it in cash, let's say I have $1 million in cash, right, with inflation right now, the way it is right now, next year it could be
You're
worth
losing
just
money.
850,000, right? So now, if it is worth 850,000, don't you agree with me that I'm losing 150,000 worth of money if I'm not properly investing that money? And there, I could be focusing on some other stuff. And I made that mistake, by the way, just about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, where I'd be spending that extra 5 hours, or let's say 20 hours in that month, instead of focusing on this investment side of things. And I'm focusing on, say, I don't know, figuring out how the web designer, talking to them a little bit more, or social media or whatever. And I probably will not make 150,000 out of that efficiency. Maybe it's only 20,000. You see my point? What I'm trying to make? So this is another thing that you gotta be humble about. You gotta realize that you cannot do everything. You should not be everywhere. And how can you best maximize your time? Now, since you're in this level, I'm talking to you in this stage, right? Tomorrow, somebody comes in and you've seen, right? You have experience and all that. Somebody comes in, they're completely green, they don't know anything about business and all this stuff. I wouldn't talk about all this stuff, right? Like, it doesn't make sense. I would have them focus on tactics to get to the first $100,000 alone, because you have already had experience. You can focus on the strategy too, right? That will speed up your progress from 100,000 to $1 million much faster. And there should be no reason. You should be getting there at least 3 times as faster than somebody just getting started, right? That you have that benefit. It'd be silly if you're doing 2, right? You got to use that advantage in your favor. It's just a question of like understanding that, okay, you're setting the base correctly so that you're not gonna lose everything you built overnight. That should be your focus. And the second part being, look at the strategy ahead of time, right? The tactics can keep changing, right? And that's why, Yash, I tell Yash, you focus on the tactics. Let me deal with the strategy. Focus on the tactics, what's happening out there, because both people cannot do both, right? Especially once you grow a business, you cannot really just say, I'm going to go in the tactics, and then your overlying strategy is messed up. And now you cannot grow even further. Hope that helped, right?
Absolutely. 100%.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. So Nina, we would love to get you on into our other events as well. I'd love to see what you're working on. I think what we'll do is maybe in a month or something, I'll get back to you. you let me know what's your issues, what you're working on, and that sort of thing, and everybody as well will get like, okay, what progress has Nina made? And that'll also be an accountability buddy of me, right? On my part.
That would be
I'm like your accountability
awesome.
buddy. I'll be like, in 1 month, I'm going to see, Nina, if you made any improvements. If not, I'll not be happy kind of thing. Not just kidding. But yeah, right? So yeah, it's a good thing
Fantastic.
too.
Thank you so much. That has changed a lot of things in my mind, and I really appreciate you sharing this wisdom with us. It's awesome. It's a game changer for me.
Excellent. Yep. We'll have the replay up on our YouTube channel as well as our Facebook account. So our Facebook group. So you can check it out too, Nina. Okay. Some points that you want to do, you can watch it later too. And also for the folks, if you want to watch the replay later, you can enjoy watching this later as well. And I want to do more of these. So don't be afraid by seeing Nina's experience and all that stuff, right? Everybody's in different levels, but that doesn't mean that that's going to slow you down and that sort of thing. So if regardless of what your experience is, and I'll leave the replay here. If anybody wants to do a call like this one, you want to jump in, share a little bit about your experience. If you're just getting started or you already experienced what worked for you and how you can have me help you, I'll happy to look. That's also a benefit for me because I get to know our customers better too. It's not like I'm just doing it just because I'm spending time on that. I love to get to know our customers as well. So please do post saying, Paul, I'm ready. I'm okay getting on front of the screen like Nina did. I'm okay sharing a little bit about my business, wherever I'm starting or whatever. And let me know in the chat box. You can do it later too. And I would love to have one of our team members or myself. I'll give you a link that you can set up an appointment, and we'll see what days would work out in our schedule, that sort of thing. We plan to do it about once a week or so, but if you want to do a couple of times a week, we'll see if it's possible, and we'll go from there. Okay. So thank you so much, Nina. I really do appreciate you jumping in. It was a lot of fun being here, and looking forward to seeing you again in about a month or so to see what progress you made and help you out from there. Okay. I'm always available, as you know, me or Yash, we're always here to help you out.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Paul. Bye.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.